Hey guys,
Hi guys, this is Michelle,
and this is Mark.
and this is the Mark and Michelle Show.
That's right. And we are here to continue on with the autism symptoms that I recovered. And, or from, however you want to.
That you healed?
That I healed. Yeah, was that what we said? That's
Yeah.
what we said. Okay. Well, we did the first night, we did communication. And that was a good show. And of course, last night's and the night before's was social communication, parts 1 and parts 2, social symptoms that I recovered from. Tonight, how about we do the mental?
Okay.
Okay. And we thought we'd talk about the mental symptoms that I healed from.
And this list comes from the free ebook that we wrote that you can get at www.healyourautism.com.
And that book, oh, go ahead.
This is also a list that we discovered as Mark healed.
Mm-hmm.
So this may be stuff you've never heard.
Right. And this list is in the book called Buried Alive, One Man's Journey Out of Autism. And Michelle put that book together. But anyway, we'll start with the first symptom, a strong inability to learn without explicit detail. So, Michelle being a teacher and having taught many autistic adults and kids over the years, we can get her to corroborate that. Now, to explain that a little bit more, teaching a person with autism has to be done very explicitly. And what I mean by that is every detail must be explained. The process of how they fit together must be explained. And to me, that covers it. Oh, and the why. Now, the why can really make it tedious, but it's necessary. Your experiences with that have been numerous because you've dealt with me for 25 plus years and teaching those brains for all that time. Are there other areas of the autistic brain in that same explicit teaching style?
Well, what I would say is NTs don't understand what explicit really is.
Can you explain explicit in such a way that most of our listeners might get that?
Well, I mean, they know what it means, but when it comes to teaching, I'm not sure how many people actually know how much has to be said.
I think what you're saying is the word explicit has an emotional connotation for NTs that doesn't quite explain how deep you have to explain. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good explanation.
How deep you have to explain, how profoundly you have to get it across.
Right. And how you have to break it down so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing comes implicitly.
Yes.
Nothing.
Nothing.
You cannot assume anything.
You just pick it up as you go.
No, absolutely not.
I had people tell me that my whole life, and I'm like, okay. Didn't get it, and it didn't happen. So, or if I did pick it up as I went, it happened over months and months instead of a couple hours.
Months and months of hearing someone yell at you, probably.
Yeah, quite often. You know, and I'll be honest, that yelling and the short-temperedness that comes with being autistic that you get from people when you're autistic forms your personality. It does. So, but anyway.
So if you think you've broken it down enough, you haven't.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go even a step further.
Mm-hmm. Is there an example that comes to mind?
Well, all I do is teach music, and that's a lot of jargon. So.
Okay. Let's see. How about the concept of an interval?
Okay, so it's more like that's not so hard because they can see it.
Okay.
And you can count up from the keys.
Let's think about something more. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, how about feel, but that's
no, that never gets learned.
No. In fact, it took
depending on how severe it is, because I've had some really high functioning people who can feel. It really depends on where the metals are.
Okay. So really what she's saying is you have to be scientific.
Yes.
In how you explain. In
Yes.
excruciating, painful detail. Yeah. And that is too much for a classroom setting.
It is.
Which is why most teachers would never do this. And something, now
tutors would need to know this.
Tutors would need to know this. But you know, if you think about how tedious that would be, even for a tutor, that keeps the autistic students always behind.
Yes.
Always. So as you get older and the more complex the subject becomes, the more behind you get. Organic chemistry, calculus, you know, pretty much any kind of math.
Well, let's just start with 2 plus 2.
2 plus 2 is 4.
Right.
But why is it 4?
But why?
Well, if you
so there would always be this why.
Well, you know, fortunately, in addition and subtraction and multiplication, that's pretty straightforward. But you know what really took me weeks to learn? Division. Because that did not come across to me straightforwardly.
Let's talk about the number 2. What does 2 feel like?
Just a couple.
So,
but I don't know even how to.
There's 2 of these.
Uh-huh.
This is 1, and it doesn't look like this one. So how are there 2 if it's not the same? I mean, you can get really crazy with autism. This is not the same as this, right? It does not look the same, so there's not 2 of them. It depends on where the metals are.
It does.
That's how you have to think when you're teaching someone. Oh, maybe they don't see that these are the same because they don't look the same. So there aren't 2 of these, there's 1 of each. So it is really tricky to teach someone with autism because they're so literal.
Yes, and she's learned how to do it well. You know, that's a good point because I would have asked that question, but they're not the same.
Right.
You know, so I don't.
Oh, podcasters! I held up 2 different pens.
2 different pens.
They're pens. They're both pens, but they don't. One clicks at the top. They both click at the top. They both have a pocket thing, but they look. One is white. One is clear with a padded thing you put your hand on.
Right, padded grip. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't look exactly the same.
They don't feel the same either. The one's heavier than the other.
Right. So you have to be so explicit that it would actually anger an NT if you were that explicit.
Yes.
And it would, and because I've tried it. Because as an autistic person, I thought, oh, well, everybody's this way. So I would tell her, yes, but what I'm talking about is an archaean has circuited DNA and ester bonds in its plasma membrane. And she'd be like, but I know this already. You see what I mean? Because she would have picked it up the first couple of times reading it in the microbiology book.
Yeah.
But me, I would have had to, I had to sit there and look at things for hours, hoping that it would get soaked in or stuck into my brain. And it still didn't work. Hey, Melissa, how are you?
Melissa.
And we're talking about other symptoms that I healed from. And tonight we're talking about mental things. Mental symptoms.
I think that's enough of strong inability to learn without explicit detail.
All right, well, we'll move on. Difficulty following verbal commands or conversation. Okay. Verbal commands. See, verbal commands, hey, how are you? Verbal commands are just as vague as written ones. Unless they're incredibly explicit. And so now technical writing is probably explicit enough for an autistic mind. A friend of ours does technical writing, and biological protocols like DNA extraction. Hey, Betty, how are you?
Hi, Betty.
And but
Shinzuma. I have no idea. We'll wave at you.
Well, Shinzuma, thanks for joining us. And we actually did wave. Hey, that's cool. But anyway, Betty, we're talking about symptoms that I healed, autism symptoms that I healed from, and we're talking about mental symptoms that are now gone for me. But we're talking
give an
about
example of a verbal
commands. Okay, here is something that confounded me to no end when I was autistic. Somebody'd say, I want you to do this. All right. Do, I know, that means take an action. This is a relative pronoun. Relative. Now, just like relative here and there. But when somebody said do this, this was never specific enough for me to know what they were talking about. Neither was the word that, right? So if somebody said, I want you to go do that, I'd be like, do what?
You probably didn't retain what had been talked about.
Well, because of short-term memory issues with autism. Right. Well, see, there's that too. But see,
healing one blueberry, huh?
Hey! But verbal commands with autism have to be just as explicit as written ones. Is that tedious? Yes, it is. It is tedious because as Michelle was talking about, being a teacher, a longtime teacher to autistic brains, you have to be so explicit that it would anger everyone else. It would anger.
Well, I can give another example. So, if you're talking about a concept, I'm a music teacher, so I've just worked on this concept with this person, and I can't say now play it. I have to say now I would like for you to play this section and maybe point, and so you have to be that explicit. You can't assume that because you were just talking about this part that they will automatically know to play this part.
Mm-hmm.
You have to say now I want you to play this part, like measure 16 and 17. I want you to play measure 16 and 17.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to be explicit.
You have to be that detailed
with your verbal commands.
You do, just like written ones. That's why scientific writing and technical writing, things like that, appeal to autistic brains, is because it's very specific. It's also rigid. And now I can read fiction. Fiction is fuzzy. I mean, that's just what it is. But my ability to just pick things up implicitly, I was in recovery for 2.5 years almost, maybe a little less than that, before she could say something to me and go, oh, I know what you mean. And she could be as implicit as she needed to be.
I had to practice being implicit with him because I had to be explicit with him for
20 years.
3 years?
Yeah, something like that. And
so to be implicit with him was a little scary because if he didn't understand it, it could get into meltdowns.
Well, it could, or it not getting done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Correctly. And that's why cooking appealed to me, because recipes are protocols and they're specific. But that's why biological protocols appealed to me, because they were specific. They had amounts, they had times, they had explicit instructions on what to do. You know, that's why science appeals to autistic brains so much. And they can be good at that. Don't get me wrong. But, it's just but the rest of the world, outside of a scientific lab or a kitchen, is fuzzy. Well, okay, a kitchen is fuzzy. It really is. There's a fuzzy logic.
It's because there's so much sociality.
Well, but there is in a lab too. You know, there's always going to be fuzziness no matter where you work if you're autistic, right? And that is the issue. An autistic brain generally is not fuzzy. So that leads us to the next. See, I've recovered from all that. Now I get almost all the fuzziness. our trip to the IRS the other day, there was a little bit of implicit. The IRS agent, he was implicit in a lot of his spoken words.
Yeah, he talked around things really well. He was really good at it.
He agreed. It was entertaining.
He was fast, and I had to really pay attention to him. And I kind of went into like intuitive listening instead of brain listening, because he talked so much implicit.
Well, I had to sit there and really listen hard. And then there were a couple times I had to look at her to have her explain. And then afterwards, later in the day, she goes, it's interesting how much you had to actually look at me to have me, how much
right,
you
because that hadn't happened in so long.
Right.
But he was extra special.
right. And
he may have been an angel.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right. And so he was good. Now, but I have recovered from that strong need, almost completely recovered from that strong requirement of explicit teaching and verbal instruction.
Yes.
Next one, need for facts. And here it is again, explicitness.
Yeah.
Right? The autistic brain runs on facts. That is its fuel. That is fuzzy. That is implicit because it's not literal. But
you mean what you just said?
What I just said. But so many times when I was autistic, if I encountered another autistic adult, we'd immediately start trading information. There was no, hi, how are you? Give a crap. I really didn't. And I didn't give a crap about how NTs were either. Now I do. Now it's all that matters. Because I have some close friends, and I always want to know how they're doing. And they tell me. And I feel them wanting to tell me now. It's pregnant when I walk up. And I love that. I didn't notice that when I was autistic. But now I don't need the facts. I enjoy facts. Might need the facts depending on what I'm doing. I mean, if I'm doing a recipe or something.
Well, yeah.
But other than that, an autistic brain is fueled by facts. And so that's why you constantly get why. Because they need the facts.
I never got why in that many different inflections.
For me,
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Hey, see, recovery. And so that was about 7 or 8.
It was. I was like, no, that's not accurate.
Yeah. But need for facts, which is why you have to know why. And then, of course, then you finally run into the emotional reason behind everything, and you can't really explain that except by saying it's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
That's it. And then.
And how did that make you think?
It made me do this. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And I have heard of some autistic adults who say, well, it's just an emotional thing, and they'll get mad. Don't use feeling words with me.
Mm-hmm.
Because that doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
And I've heard that a few times. And I wasn't quite like that. I didn't say that. I was just like, I don't get it.
I definitely don't use feeling words when I'm teaching autistic people. And I don't say things like, how do you feel about, do you feel okay about that? No, I say, what do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they usually say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have no sense of self often.
Yeah, it's hard for them to access actually how they feel or what they know about something, unless it's a straight explicit fact.
So I just go by, well, okay, were they able to play it?
Right. And so need for facts is incredibly important, which is why they're full of facts. I mean, they're walking encyclopedias. I was.
You were a walking Wikipedia.
Yes, agreed. And I still read Wikipedia to this day, although I don't read it nearly as much as I used to. So, because I'm finding that relationships are far more interesting.
Yeah, he's on Facebook more.
Yep. I'm on Facebook more.
Yeah.
But I look forward to going to work sometimes. Well, quite a bit of times when I know friends of mine are going to be there because I want to talk to them, like my friend Jessica or my friend Marielle, or and or my friend Matt, or Kyle for that matter, So there's lots of folks now I look forward to talking to, which when I was autistic, I didn't care about talking to people. I really didn't. I wanted to do my job. Now, I still want to do my job. In fact, so single-mindedly that it annoys some people. But I'm all right with that now. So, well, that kind of covers.
Did we do them all?
We didn't do all of them. How about we split this into a two-parter?
Okay.
And then tomorrow night, we'll talk about the three other symptoms, mental symptoms.
Okay.
The need for thorough planning, hyperfocus, and meltdowns to overstimulation.
Yeah. Those
Good
are all,
stuff.
that's going to be good.
Good stuff.
All right,
So,
you take care of that one.
All right.
I'll take care of this one.
All right. Well, continue on with the celery juice. Continue on with the heavy metal detox smoothie. Continue on with the lemon water. And definitely go to www.healyourautism.com/buy the book, BUY the book, and download Heal Your Autism's do-it-yourself guide to detox. Our friend Melissa says, I've been thinking that some of the mental symptoms you described in past lives may not be strictly autistic.
Sorry. I am healing from fibromyalgia and brain fog from neurotoxins. Also make it difficult to think of how to solve a problem. I've studied engineering and have 20-year career under my belt. I used to be able to multitask, prioritize, and research to solve problems. It's now coming back, but a few years ago, even planning the groceries or a meal was difficult. Maybe in a future live, we can cross-reference with which symptom is strict. Okay, we actually have it right here. Which symptom is strictly autistic and which is neurotoxin related. I wonder if it would be helpful to categorize. We have already done that in this list. She says, I wonder if it would be helpful to categorize symptoms like that, or it may be my heavy metals giving me the urge to say this. No, we actually have that. This list has
a key.
Has a key, whether it's heavy metals, strep, or viral, or stagnant liver.
Mm-hmm.
What our best guess is. And someday when we get to meet medical medium, we're going to ask him how accurate it is.
Because this is what we picked up through the reading. Because he'll say, brain fog is viral or it's strep based, whatever. So we picked
had
some
to
of that
kind
up.
of intuitively guess.
We did, because knowing how each of those things affected me, viruses, strep, and heavy metals, I think autism really is not as rare as people think it is.
Yeah, I think lots of people have
autism. I think really autism is just the highest functions of the brain have been broken down and wound up becoming dysfunctional. Prioritizing, decision making, motivation, all the things that you talked about are a part of autism. But I don't think autism is some special illness anymore. I think when people get ill, I think when people get ill, they lose those higher functions to a certain degree or another.
Because viruses are involved. Strep is involved in autism.
But other things as well. And so why wouldn't the strep or the viruses or the heavy metals affect other non-autistic brains in an autistic way? I don't think autism is special, and I don't think it's rare.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we will see you guys tomorrow.
The three we mentioned tonight, we think is mostly heavy metals.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mostly.
Mm-hmm. In fact, looking at this key, heavy metals affects most every one of these symptoms.
But backed up liver is going to be
the way to heal it all.
Just about everything.
It is. So anyway, anything else?
Okay, I guess we're going to stop again.
All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night, though, with part 2.
Okay, we offer coaching.
Uh-huh.
And we also, we said everything else?
We said everything else.
You handle that one, I'll handle this one.
All
Okay,
right.
bye, guys.
See you tomorrow.